Ladies and gentlemen, good morning from Brussels. I will be very brief in presenting our work for the Brown book. There is no need to say that since the crisis started in late 2009, it has been worsening over time, and in particular during the last months. Now, it is crucial if we want to solve or at least to mitigate the effect of this crisis to understand the causes of this crisis. Now, the official reading has been mainly about fiscal issues. This assumes that the nature of this crisis is mainly fiscal. Our point of view is that this crisis has sort of twin nature. There are fiscal elements in it, but the financial nature is the dominating one. And in particular, our reading of the crisis is that this crisis is the result of a constellation of vulnerabilities. In particular, they concern balance of payment, external debt, sudden stops from north to the south in cross-border bank financing, and a big issue about undercapitalization of the banking sector. Now, this generalized fragility of the financial sector is to some extent the result of a fundamental inconsistency in the setup of the monetary union. And I'll try to explain this point, which has been completely overlooked during the first 10 years of the monetary union, but it has produced consequences which are having a large impact on the system at the moment. And in particular, I'm referring to the fact that if you look at the design of the monetary union, we have an independent central bank whose objective is to maintain price stability, and for which debt monetization is it's impossible. We have the no bailout clause, which means that neither the EU nor other European countries can take on the liability of other countries, which implies together that the risk of default for a country is largely increased in a monetary union with respect to a standalone country which can print money to buy its own debt. Now, the consequence of it is that indeed, since there is a risk of default, the bond issued by a government are not risk-free. Now, this is in contradiction with the existing financial regulation, because, as we all know, government debts issued by Eurozone countries are still all the same according to financial regulation, and they're all considered riskless. The Greek experience has shown that this is not the case. Now, these issues is very relevant, but has not been addressed yet in financial regulation. And actually, this overlooking of this fundamental problem has generated a situation in which banks and governments are tightly linked. Now, this is now a sort of consensus, very large agreement on the fact that this is a big issue in this crisis. And one of the fundamental steps to move on in this crisis is really to break the link. Now, the big problem is how to do it. Because the high risk is that we impose a change in financial regulation which is highly procyclical and then could worsen the situation, basically inducing banks to increase the sales of government bonds, depressing markets which are, or segments of markets which are highly stressed already. In the paper we wrote, we highlight just two elements that could help in this direction. And the first one is to consider that the risk weighting should be based, rather than on ratings issued by rating agencies, by a more objective criteria, which is more tightly linked to the indicators of the financial position and the fiscal position of the country. And the second element, which is even more relevant, is the idea of introducing sort of compulsory diversification in the exposures to government of banks, insurance and other regulated institutions. This would help because it would lead to diversification in the south, so reducing the concentration, the exposure towards the domestic government, but it would help also in the north of the Eurozone, where the same regulated institutions would have some incentive to hold that of the peripheral countries. I think that this is an avenue that deserves to be explored, and I hope that with this will meet your interest. Thank you very much indeed.